Hello again, everybody. It's Laurie White, President of the Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce, and welcome to episode number 87 of Chamber TV. And today we have a very special guest and a very special program. And every once in a while, we have an opportunity to have a guest where we can spend time with him or her and really dig deep into the organization, what they're all about, some of their strategic themes, and some of the specific challenges they are confronting and opportunities that they see ahead. So this is sort of a deep dive into our guest, and our guest is Charlie Kelley. And Charlie is the Executive Director of the Rhode Island Student Loan Authority and the College Planning Centers of Rhode Island. And RISLA is a longtime member of the Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce, so we're really thrilled to be able to have this opportunity to sit with Charlie for an extended period of time and just, talk about some of the issues around education and how the pandemic has really interrupted the dreams of many kids who wanted an on-site college campus student experience. But I know there's light at the end of the tunnel. So anyway, having said that, hello, Charlie. Welcome to Chamber TV. Great to see you.
Hello, Laurie. Very excited to be here. Wish I was in person with you, but given the world these days, this is the next best thing. So thank you for giving us an opportunity to talk with your members.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are looking forward to this. Let's start with the way we always do. And we ask our guests, how are you? Where are you? And how's your family?
Family is doing well, thank you. And I'm at home in South Kingstown, Rhode Island. And as long as the yard people don't show up behind me running a leaf blower, we'll be doing well. So.
Fantastic. So let's start our discussion. Let's just go very wide and tell us a little bit about the Rhode Island Student Loan Authority. And aren't you all about the college planning and scholarship folks?
Yes.
You're something new to share.
The Student Loan Authority was started in 1981, and it's a nonprofit that focuses providing a package of financial assistance and help for Rhode Islanders and people coming to school here in Rhode Island to help them achieve their higher education dreams. And generally, we have the lowest interest rates in the country, and we've done very well. And the programs that we offer have expanded over the years. A little over 20 years ago, we started the College Planning Centers, which was a free source of professional help, former financial aid and admissions officers that would sit down with students and families here in Rhode Island and help them with college selection, admissions essays, career assessments, financial literacy, and of course, filling out those all-important financial aid forms, the FAFSA and the College Board CSS profile that so many people find a real hurdle. And it's particularly important for those families that are maybe first generation going to college, that don't know how the system works. So we kind of hold their hand through the process and make sure they receive the free financial aid that they're eligible for. And it really helps them get to the place they want to be and educating their children, or sometimes themselves as well. We see a lot of people going back to school for advanced degrees as well.
Yeah, so you were talking about your longevity in this role. So you must be witness to so many heartwarming stories of students and families that you've helped. Can you tell us a little bit about a couple of families or circumstances that have really been memorable for you during this journey?
Well, Laura, you're very kind, talking about longevity. In other words, I'm getting sort of old, but I have been doing this for 29 years, and the appreciation from students and families is really heartwarming. And just recently, since we've been doing this so long, we're starting to meet with the students and families, the children of families that we helped get through college initially. And now they're coming back to us with their own children, and we're helping them go on to higher education. And we also survey, like most organizations do these days. And we use Trustpilot, and at the bottom of our website, we list out a number of those. And I'm just amazed that people have taken the time to express their gratitude at what both our loan programs have done for them, or refinancing, and particularly our College Planning Center, and helping them get free financial aid, Pell Grants, scholarships, things of that nature.
Well, it's been an amazing journey for you, and I'm wondering is there any one student in particular that comes to mind that's been particularly memorable for you?
Yes, there was an individual that was first generation, came from one of the inner city high schools in Rhode Island, and she really wanted to go to school, but her family didn't really think it was going to be possible. So our counselors worked with her in filling out financial aid forms. There were some issues regarding residencies and such. And she went on to not only finish her degree at one of the local schools, but then went back and obtained her medical degree. And even though she could have relocated to a higher paying job outside of the state, decided to stay in Rhode Island and practice medicine there. Sort of an appreciation for what help she had received from Rhode Island in achieving what she never thought was possible. So I think she's trying to pay back some of the good work that many people provided her in achieving her goals, and now she's helping save lives and rebuild people's health. So a very nice story, and fortunately one of many.
Yeah. Well, that's a really beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. And we can see how some of these programs, you talk a lot about the acronyms associated with it, but it's important to really understand the human impact and the stories of people that have experienced what you have spent 29 years of your life doing. So the Employer Repayment Program, Charlie, is new. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. We've always tried to help our borrowers repay their student loans as quickly as possible, at lowest cost as possible. And one of the ways we do that is helping them refinance their loans at a lower interest rate or income-based repayment programs. But a number of years ago, when we saw that employers were beginning to help their employees, particularly their young new graduates, repay their student loans, we're very interested in that. And surveys of employees, particularly, again, the younger generation, indicated that benefit of student loan assistance was more important to them than a 401k, and second only to health insurance. And so a number of companies offered the program, but in prior years, that was a taxable benefit. So anything that the employer paid towards an employee's student loans had to be included in their W-2 or 1099. And in essence, the employee paid taxes on that income, even though they didn't receive the cash directly. So it sort of diminished somewhat that benefit. But with the CARES Act that was passed as part of the whole pandemic relief package, it made employer repayment of employees' student loans a tax-free benefit. And it's capped at $5,250 a year for cumulative for tuition and student loan assistance. But that's a huge benefit to people paying down their student loans. We encourage the employees to have their employer's payments applied to principal so that it pays off the loan faster and saves them hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in interest over the typical life of the loan. So it was really very exciting. And fortunately, over a year ago, we started writing the software to administer these programs and launched it. But we have really seen it take off in the last few months. And many companies and organizations have been very interested in it. And I've just been so impressed with those organizations that want to help their employees do the right thing for them. So it's again a nice facet of the higher education world that we're involved in, and we enjoy working with employers to implement this.
So does this program interface nicely with the governor's Wavemaker Fellowship Scholarship Program, which again is a similar type of instrument to help young people working with employers to get their college student debt paid off faster?
Yes, it does. And to encourage companies and organizations to offer it, RISLA has been offering this service for free and will so until April 1st of next year. And then we also do a 10% match. Just like you hear about companies matching employees' pay for 401ks, we will match what a company provides to their employees in this program in the form of loan forgiveness for any RISLA loan that the employee may have with us or takes out with us in the future, such as a refinancing loan. And we'll do that up to $500 per employee. So it helps multiply the benefit that the employer is offering by this 10% match. We also then offer the employees discounts on refinancing their education loans, and we provide counseling and strategies to help them deal with their student debt, which many of them we find is very, very stressful. So anything we can do to help them is appreciated, and we offer financial literacy to all of the employees of an organization, not just those with student debt. And I've been involved in financial literacy as a CPA and CFA for many years. And it is amazing what people don't know about how to save for retirement, save for college. We work very closely with the state's excellent 529 plan. And it's sort of a timeline. We help people, encourage them to save for college. We'll help them apply and get free financial aid. And then when they graduate, we can refinance their education loans at a lower rate. And if they're fortunate enough to work at an employer that provides repayment assistance, we'll help administer that for them and give the employee free counseling.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And if you think about it from an employer's perspective, what's really happening here is the real competition for talent and being able to field the very best workforce and getting a head start on finding capable young people that are just coming out of school that they can hire. They can bring them into their enterprises, train them, and grow them, especially right from day one. So this program is something that employers should really think about if they are experiencing any kind of challenges relative to recruitment. Is that right?
Laurie, you're absolutely dead on with this. In this time when people with technical knowledge, such as the good folks you have working here at the Chamber and other companies, trying to attract the best and brightest. And let's face it, particularly with working remotely, there's so much competition for talent where companies from the West Coast could hire people here in Rhode Island to work for them remotely, Rhode Island companies and organizations need to come up with benefit packages that will attract and retain their key employees. And this is one excellent way of doing that.
Sure. We're still in the midst of a pandemic, as we all know. How likely is it that companies can continue to add on to their employee benefit programs right now? Are you seeing any bit of a pause button being hit on this while companies regroup, particularly those that might be just a little stressed? Or is this the time to say, nope, we're gonna go for it. We're gonna add this onto our benefit package?
Well, we certainly see where companies every day in the news are having troubles, and it's a huge challenge. But I have been just amazed and excited about how many companies really want to explore this option. And yes, given the pandemic, they may not be able to do it for all employees, but so do we propose to them, just as you mentioned, start off small. Offer it maybe for the new hires, maybe the recent college graduates. And then as the economy and employment picture allows, expand it to more employees. But this way they sort of get a foothold in offering it, get recognized as a favored employer, a good place to work, and it'll help them retain and attract the best and the brightest.
Yeah, so the talent recruitment picture is something that all employers have been grappling with for a number of years, and I assume that that trend is only going to continue because the desire to really level up everyone's businesses is going to require having and being able to field the best workforce, and that's going to make the competitive advantage for individual businesses. So it's great to see that RISLA is a real partner with businesses to make that happen. So let's talk a little bit about the college debt picture in the United States. It's a very scary thing, and certainly when we were growing up, we never saw this level of massive, student debt. And, what are students doing these days to, try to, beyond what we just talked about to cope with this massive student debt level? So give us a picture of what the average student might be confronting today.
Well, national media covers well the $1.6 trillion in debt. But here in Rhode Island, the picture has actually been better. I think a great deal of this has to do with the high quality institutions in our state. So graduates are getting a very good education and are able to go on and be gainfully employed. And the default rate, for example, on student loans in Rhode Island is less than across the country. And in particular, RISLA's programs, the net default rate over the last 25 years or so is less than 2%. So while student loans are certainly a concern and something we try to help people with, most borrowers here in Rhode Island are dealing with it. I didn't say it's easy, but they're being responsible, and we try to help get them into, whether it's a federal income-based repayment program, or if they're having troubles with, say, health or unemployment, particularly because of the pandemic. We've done a huge amount with forbearances and income-based repayment plans for those people until they get back on their feet. So that prevents them from going into default and ruining their credit and future employment prospects as well, because many employers now check the credit reports of potential employees. And also refinancing. We were the first nonprofit in the country to offer refinancing of education loans. So that allows people to take advantage of the lower current interest rates. We only do fixed rates because we feel those are the safest. And we, from day one, when a family's looking to send their child off to college, our focus is on counseling to borrow the minimum amount to get as much free financial aid as they can. Go to rischolarships.org and find those local scholarships that they actually have a good chance of getting. Pell Grants, you obtain those through filling out the federal financial aid forms, commonly known as the Fafsa. We encourage the student to first borrow under the federal student loan program, which provides $5,500 for the first year of college, freshman. And then we provide a series of financial literacy, whether it's our Knowledge for College scholarship program, where students can go on, get a little module on financial literacy, answer a couple of questions, and be put into an opportunity to win one of a couple of scholarships every month for a couple of $1,000s. And in the process, they learn hopefully to be smarter borrowers and more responsible in handling all of their financial matters, not just student loans.
Yeah, this is such valuable information. And, it's amazing that, the degree to which you have to be an expert in all things financial management to even at a young age, to start to think about how to position yourself for the rest of your life. And it starts with making sure that you've accessed and truly, run the gamut on the plethora of financial aid opportunities there are. And you've outlined quite a few of them. So I think that's important to reinforce that there is money out there. You just have to know how to get it.
That's absolutely right. And the other thing we try to encourage students is to not go heavily into debt for their undergraduate, because, as you know, many students go on to graduate degrees. And if they take on too much debt initially, they may be precluded from going on to a graduate degree. And just using the local schools here in Rhode Island, both the state and the independents, is a great way for them to get a quality, affordable education.
What is the interest rate these days for such loans?
Well, the loans that we offer are just under 4% for what's called an immediate repayment loan. And it's a fixed rate, no fees. And the federal Stafford loan that we encourage students to take out on their own has a rate of 2.75% with some minimum fees through the federal government. And that loan the student obtains by going through the college that they're attending. And they have to fill out the FAFSA form to even though they're not going to get maybe a Pell Grant, they still have to fill out the FAFSA form to obtain a federal Stafford loan, direct loan.
Do you have any suggestions on how families might approach the FAFSA application process?
Well, they certainly can. First of all, no one should ever pay to have a FAFSA form filled out for them. The federal website is a good place to start, but if someone is uncertain about certain issues or just overwhelmed about filling out these federal forms, they can make an appointment right online through RISLA.com with one of our College Planning Center counselors. And pre-pandemic, they would go into our offices in the Warwick Mall or offices in Northern Rhode Island and Lincoln and sit down with one of our experts. But since that's no longer possible, what we've implemented is that they can schedule a telephone call, and our folks will actually enter in the data for them directly into the federal loan system, so there's no security issues, and talk them through and answer their questions right as they're doing it. And it's a very demanding work for our staff, but they have done just a tremendous job. And last year we helped over 4,000 people file their FAFSA forms. And we hope to equal that again this year. And Rhode Island, by the way, has one of the highest FAFSA completion rates in the country. One organization last year ranked Rhode Island has the fourth highest FAFSA completion rates, which is very good, particularly considering our diverse population. And an educated population is a very important economic driver for a state, as you well know. So I think that's a very good leading indicator, if you will, for Rhode Island's future.
Congratulations. That's amazing. No doubt due to you and your staff and being very visible in these arenas and making it possible to be able to assist families with the FAFSA application process at no cost. So just remember, everybody, Charlie says you should never pay to have your FAFSA application completed. There are plenty of free resources.
Well, thank you, but it's also, we worked collaboratively with Rhode Island Department of Education, the colleges, particularly Community College of Rhode Island, is very good at helping people fill out their FAFSAs, and the Financial Aid Officers Association. So it's a real collaborative effort, and we're very pleased and proud to be part of that effort.
So if you're just joining us, we are talking with Charlie Kelley, and Charlie is the Executive Director of the Rhode Island Student Loan Authority and the College Placement Centers of Rhode Island. And we're talking about student debt and talent recruitment and retention and ways in which students can go about getting the money that they need for college tuition and setting themselves up for a bright future, and not to be saddled with too much debt as they leave a four-year institution and or graduate school. So Charlie, I want to just circle back here for a second. And the theme of today's show is talking about the Employer Repayment Program. That's our audience, employers and the like. So let's just kind of unravel that a little bit and talk about how companies, if they're listening today, what they might do as a couple of first steps to explore whether or not the Employer Repayment Program for their young talent is something that they want to enact.
Well, we realize that human resource professionals and company CEOs are very busy dealing with the pandemic and other issues. So we've tried to make it very simple. They can go to our website, RISLA.com, or call us, and we will get back to them and explain how the process works, the benefits both for them and for their employees, the tax-free nature of it, and how they can quickly implement a program. We handle all of the onboarding of the employees, getting them to put together all their student loans. We use data aggregation software to accomplish that. Many people don't know what loans they have, what the interest rates are, whether it's fixed or variable. We help them pull that all together, and the employee then can decide who they want to have their loan, where they want the proceeds to be sent to, whether it's one of their loans with one of the banks or the federal government or a private lender. And for the companies, what we do is help communicate to the employees what a great benefit that they're providing their colleagues. And we'll do all the bureaucratic process of routing the payments directly from the company to the servicer that the employee has their loan at, and make sure it gets applied to the correct loan. And we then send out an email every month to the employee saying, this is what your employer has done for you. And since it is tax-free, at least until the end of the year, and hopefully Congress will extend that, there's no W-2, 1099 reporting involved. And we are offering at this time as well, at no charge, if employers want to try to get that last minute bonus in for their employees that have student loans, we'll help them execute that and get it done so the employee, regardless of what happens in DC, gets some tax-free help on reducing their student loan.
Well, that's a very creative way to issue bonuses, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And there are some very generous employers out there, and we have the privilege of working with them.
So you were you were sort of comparing the responsibilities of the employer with the responsibilities of what you and the RISLA team provide in terms of oversight and work and headache and prep. And, nobody wants to take on another program that is complicated, hard to administer, hard to explain, how to do all the mechanics that are associated with it, plus, risk, et cetera. But what you're saying is that don't worry about any of that. The RISLA team will come in and handle it all on the employer's behalf.
That's correct. And one of the key things is it's only a tax-free benefit if the money is applied to a qualified education loan. And we're the ones that will go out and make sure that the funds are only being applied to a qualified education loan. So it's not a taxable event for the employee. And the employer probably doesn't want their contribution being used to pay off employee's car loan. Plus then it would have to be reported as taxable income by the employer. So we protect the employer from that exposure. We also handle the phone calls, emails that are involved when employees have questions about what they should do and how do they do it. And while at first it may seem complicated, we've been doing student loans for so many years. We know all the different types of education loans. We know the different servicers. We know who to call if there's a problem at those servicing firms or lenders. And there are certain loans that the employee may say want to pay off, but we'll show them why maybe they should pick a different one, whether it's because there are certain benefits or interest rate differentials, things of that nature. And as you said, Laurie, companies don't need any more headaches. So our mission is to try to help students and families. And if we can make it simpler for employers to offer this type of benefit, we've achieved our goal of making borrowing and higher education less burdensome.
You mentioned qualified education loans, and I understand what you're saying, the distinction between an education loan and a car loan, but are there certain loans that students may have taken out to go to any particular kind of education institution that may or may not be accredited? Or are there any educational institutions that are not part of this reimbursement?
Well, generally, there's only loans, particularly federal loans, that are only eligible to be used at a Title IV institution. And we know what schools those are, and we know what type of loans they are, and we'll get the documentation to show that it was for an accredited education program. Now, even certificate programs can be loans for those could be considered eligible loans. But here's where you sort of get down into the weeds, and this is what we do. And we know how to ferret out what is qualified and what is not. And again, most of the employees and former students here in Rhode Island have gone to some very good institutions in New England or Rhode Island. And it's not too big of an issue. We don't have a large number of for-profit colleges or programs that would be ineligible. But you have to make sure, and that's part of the due diligence that we do.
Yeah, so I was just going to ask about that. So for-profit educational institutions, if a student were to have a loan to pay for an education at a for-profit institution, would that disqualify them for this program?
No, it wouldn't. Good question. And just like with everything else, there are good for-profit schools and not so good ones. But again, if they are an accredited program, even if it's a for-profit, those loans would still qualify.
I love what you're saying about the stackable certificates too, because that is very much something that many educational institutions are doing right now. So because it gives students an opportunity to, get a badge or a certification, something they can point to, they can download and post to their LinkedIn profile, or they can present it to an employer to say, hey, I'm certified in, design thinking, or I'm certified in COBOL. Even though COBOL seems to be a thing of the past, it's really not. Employers are really searching and scrambling for people who have certain computer programming languages. So certificates are a big deal these days. So talk a little bit about the nuances of funding certificate program components.
Well, our programs, for example, are available for funding certificate programs if they're through an accredited institution. And couldn't agree more with you that lifelong learning isn't just a slogan anymore. It really is a fact. Whether it's learning all the different Zoom and Workstream and other programs, and computer science and programming is a prime example. And that is also an area where many high-tech firms are using the employer repayment program, again, as a recruiting tool. So as long as the loan is for an accredited program, they'd be eligible to have the employer's contribution used to pay that down.
If somebody were watching right now and they're an employee, working full-time for, a bank or anything, and something in the back of their mind is saying, hey, I might want to go get a certificate program, participate or earn a certificate in XYZ. Are you saying that RISLA programs are not just isolated to, what we would traditionally call college students and, late teens, early to mid 20s? Adults are eligible for these loans too?
Oh, absolutely. And what we have found over the years, what they call non-traditional students are a growing segment of the college population. And it's not just at the Community College of Rhode Island, but other institutions as well. University of Rhode Island, I know, is very strongly involved in certificate programs and continuing education programs, and very high quality.
Fantastic. So what would be an average cost of earning a certificate? I know it depends on the program and it depends on the institution.
The range is too big, I think, to quote any numbers. Really depends upon the institution, the length of the program. And I would just encourage people, whether they're right out of school or been out of school for years, to contact, do a little Google search and find what local institutions are offering these type of programs and check them out.
Yeah.
There's a good return on investment with many of those certificate programs.
So this is another way that employers might be able to reward employees. So it's not just, the young folks coming out, it's their incumbent workforce, whether they're, 30, 40, 50, 60, 90, you name it, right?
Yeah, the CARES Act, which made the employer repayment assistance tax-free, really was just sort of incorporated into the existing legislation that allows companies to pay up to $5,250 a year in tuition assistance. So actually that limit of $5,250 is now a combined limit for both tuition assistance and student loan repayment. And it follows pretty much the same guidelines. And companies that have a written plan for their tuition reimbursement program would just add a section in there on student loan repayment assistance. So what we're really looking at is, how do we implement with employers a program that is easy for them, and it's not that difficult to set it up. It can be done pretty quickly, And one of the first things we do is work with employers to do a survey of their employees, so they have an idea of how many people might participate. And then they can, implement it or adjust it to fit their budget. No one wants any surprises. So one of the first things we'll do for them is do a survey of their employees. And since they're responding to us rather than the employers, they might be apt to talk more about their student loans or their debts that they have, their issues. And then we can summarize it and keep confidential anybody's personal information. And relay that back to the employer as saying, well, this segment of your new hires ranks employer repayment above some other benefit they may be offering. And here's how you could fill the needs and desires of that segment of employees. So you first need to know, as an employer, who might be interested, how extensive that is, and then you have some hard data to facilitate putting together a plan to help your employees, both current employees and your new hires, and a great recruiting tool, particularly when you're competing with some of the out-of-state employers.
We're talking to Charlie Kelley from the Rhode Island Student Loan Authority. We are live on Facebook. We are live on Twitter. We are live on YouTube. This is a very important conversation about tuition assistance in education. Charlie, why, you think about the CARES Act, and a lot of employers know that CARES Act monies may be accessed for businesses that are experiencing a downturn, and there's monies available for, payment protection, payroll protection, and the like. It doesn't necessarily come to mind immediately that the CARES Act would be something that employers could adopt to get tax-free assistance for their employees for education. Why is this program part of the CARES Act? What was the thinking of why it was important for the feds to address this issue?
Well, this issue was actually being addressed by Congress a couple of years ago. There were some bipartisan bills, if you can believe that, in Washington supporting making this a tax-free benefit. There's been great talk about forgiving hundreds of millions or trillions of dollars in student loans, but given budget constraints, particularly now with all the COVID relief programs, even the federal government can only do so much. But I think a number of congressional leaders recognize that being in partnership with employers to help them offer this benefit, the federal government forgoes the income tax revenue from that benefit, and the employer is making payments. So while they can deduct that contribution to someone's student loan, it's still going to cost them some after-tax dollars. But it's really a partnership in trying to keep the economy moving and people employed. And recognizing that, while you can't do everything, here's something that we can do to help those who are dealing with their student loans from undergrad or graduate degrees or certificate programs.
Mm-hmm. So is it accurate to say that if employees are getting favorable tax assistance, in terms of accessing this program, that it lowers their taxable wages, and that's a win also for the employer?
Well, usually they don't lower the employee's pay. It doesn't reduce this, but it doesn't increase their taxable income. So really it's typically on top of their normal salary. And employer payment plans can't be part of a cafeteria plan, and this is part of sort of the counseling or information we provide employers. But it's really just targeted to those individuals with education loans that they've taken out for their education. But I probably shouldn't put it this way, but this is really almost like getting paid under the table, being able to get money to put towards your education loans when there's no federal or state taxes coming out of it. It's an immediate, huge benefit.
So it's not a Section 125 or Section 105 plan. It's outside the parameters of those two sections of the tax code.
That's right.
Okay.
So again, it's under the sort of the same provisions as the tuition assistance programs.
Okay. So in the final minutes that we have together, Charlie, I just want to touch a little bit about student outreach activities that you typically engage in. Look a little different now under COVID-19 circumstances. What are you doing on that front, and how can the chamber and how can the business community help you get the word out to the public about the important work that you're doing and the money that's available, readily available, if you know about it?
Well, right now is the height of our FAFSA completion season. People could start filling out the FAFSA form October 1, which would be for the 2021-22 academic year. Our College Planning Center can book an appointment to get telephone help or ask questions. Please understand this time of year, we're actually booked out a couple of weeks, even though we have everybody on board 7 days a week. The other thing that we've had to switch to is doing virtual financial aid nights. Typically, we'd go out to the high schools across the state and do financial aid nights for the students and parents. Now we're doing that virtually. For over 20 years, we've been doing Senator Reid's financial aid forums across the state. This year as well, we're doing that virtually with him. And it's going to be later on in this month, so watch for information on that. But Senator Reid's been a big supporter of higher education, both locally and nationally. And he has a panel of folks like ourselves and CPAs and saving for college and the tax deductions for certain college expenses, helping families just understand how they can access both free monies, tax deductions, and save and be good consumers when it comes to paying for higher education.
Do parents and students think that things will be, quote unquote, back to normal next year, or are they holding off a little bit on, do we really want to, start this process? We don't know if everything is still going to be remote. Do we want to pay for that? Where's most people's heads at relative to what the future looks like as a student?
Boy, that's, as they say, is the $60,000 question. Probably with inflation, it's more than that now. But the poor colleges and universities, those folks have been working nonstop since this pandemic began. And we do find that some students have taken a gap year or a gap semester. And people will disagree with me, but part of what we've also seen is more and more students living at home. And while the students and maybe the parents aren't always think that's the best solution, it has saved them huge amounts of money, and they're taking on less debt. We have seen a reduction in the amount of money that people are borrowing for this coming academic year, the academic year that we're in. And while they're missing out on some of the college experience by not being in the dorms on campus, they're taking on less debt, which is a very good thing.
So as for next year?
Your guess is as good as mine, Laurie.
Yeah, okay. Well, maybe by the end of the year, we'll have more clarity on the number of vaccines or potential vaccines that are available to all of us and the timeline for distributing those vaccines to the general public. So we'll keep an eye on that. Anything else that we haven't talked about, Charlie, that you want to make sure that we are crystal clear about as we wrap up?
Well, again, just an open invitation to all of your chamber members that we will talk with you. I will meet with you virtually or live in person to discuss these programs with you and just see if it makes sense for their organization or not. We just don't want companies to miss out on being offering this benefit and their employees to be able to benefit from it, just because they're not aware of it or uncertain about how it works or think it's too much of a burden for them to do. The burden is on us. We take care of that. That's part of our mission. And whatever we can do to help your members, we will be there for them.
Fantastic. Rhode Island is very lucky to have you at the helm of this organization, Charlie. And you stated at the outset, you're a CPA, you're a CFA. You have a lot of credentials, a lot of, street smarts, in addition to, the great professional achievements that you have. And I know that just by chatting with you, how deeply passionate you are about this work, and the linkage between education and economic development and the success of all Rhode Islanders and our state is dependent on having an educated workforce. So RISLA is part and parcel of this, and we're so glad to have you as members of the Greater Providence Chamber of Commerce. If people want to reach out to you directly, what's the best place or the best way to do that, Charlie?
To do that, it'd be to go to RISLA.com if they'd like a demonstration of the Employer Repayment Program, see about refinancing of either their education loans, or if we can put a special program together for their employees to counsel them and show them how to refinance and save money. And I'm very lucky to have just an incredible group at RISLA of people that many of them been there for 20 or more years, who are just so knowledgeable and hardworking and have done a tremendous job remotely during this whole chaos. So we will be there for them, and all they have to do is, and if they'd like, if some companies would like to reach out to me directly, my email is ckelley, Kelley, @risla.com. And we will try to make sure that you don't miss out on an opportunity for you and your employees.
Fantastic. Thank you for spending such quality time with us, Charlie, and talking us through these important issues. And I hope that you will come back again in the future in a couple of months and tell us how things are going and other new programs that you are going to be sharing with employers. And we look forward to that conversation. So thank you. Have a great day and be well.
Thank you, Laurie, and keep up the good work with the Chamber. We know it's not easy during this pandemic for you and your staff as well. Take care.
It's a privilege to do this work. So